In 2010, media scholar Dana Boyd, all lowercase letters by the way, made a blog post on her personal website talking about the now defunct Forum Spring website. It was this really anonymous niche website where people could have a profile and you could answer anonymous questions about yourself. So what she's observed with a colleague of hers is that teenagers were basically setting up accounts anonymously, sending themselves incredibly nasty questions and quips, and with it she was incredibly confused because why would these teenagers be doing this to themselves? So this blog post was her talking about this sort of digital self-harm, and she posited several reasons as to why someone might be doing this to themselves. Because they looked cool answering these questions, or perhaps it was a cry for help, or, it was a cry for attention. Terribly problematic of you, Boyd. So I don't really fault Boyd for talking about it in that manner, because that's 2010, it's currently 2019 now. And a lot of academia tends to fall behind when it comes to new things. So academia will fall behind and struggle to find ways to articulate this kind of stuff. So as academia struggles to catch up, this term, digital self-harm, has been used for academia to refer mainly the practice that Boyd pointed out, which is people, usually teenagers, using sock puppet accounts to talk trash about themselves. Which, admittedly, it's part of the parcel, I guess, because they're actively engaging in self-harm by talking trash about themselves. But I found this to be a very limited use of the term, because when I was first introduced to this term, it was through a content creator called ContraPoints in a video about incels, and she applied that concept to them due to them being part of a community that was very active in pulling themselves apart and talking trash about each other's looks. They had effectively cut out a middleman where they had just, instead of using themselves to talk trash about themselves, they threw themselves at other people who talked trash about them. So I can't really take credit for that use of the term, that's just what interested me. So what I found going into it is that academia had latched onto this term and didn't really move much from it. They didn't really apply it to anything else. So it really kind of got me thinking in wondering what ways could technology be used to cause yourself harm. And I'm not really someone who's in any psych classes, but from what I understand, self-harm is incredibly complicated. It's not just this or that, it can be a whole myriad of things. So there's a series called Black Mirror, usually talking about technology and how bad it is and how it's going to ruin everyone's lives. It's a very niche series. You probably haven't heard of it. It's very underground. But in this series, there's an episode in the first season called The Entire History of You. Yeah. So there's this guy named Liam, and he has a grain, and a grain is a tool that everyone has, and it's I think it's right here, implanted, and through it, you record your entire life through your eyes, and you can look back on the footage and replay parts of your life and all that beeswax. So Liam, through the course of the episode, he's obsessing over an interview, and he's obsessing with his friends about the interview, and then it turns to him obsessing about his wife's ex-boyfriend and about footage he might have of this boyfriend. And it just escalates and escalates until this dude is breaking into the ex-boyfriend's home and beating the shit out of him and telling him to delete the footage of his wife from the guy's... It's a mess. He turns his life upside down because he's obsessing over all this footage. And the moral of the story is yes, this guy ruined his entire life. He ruined his happy marriage and got divorced because he was obsessing over stuff. What really interested me was the commentary that Brooker, one of the showrunners of Black Mirror, spoke about in regards to Liam. Is that if there's a moral to this episode, is that Liam should not have gone looking for something. This is the review of the Black Mirror episode. I just found it's a very interesting example, particularly Brooker's commentary on it. As a digital native myself, I too have sort of felt, I think that's probably a good lesson to learn, not to go looking for stuff that upsets us. But haven't you, like, sometimes felt the allure of looking for something to be pissed off about? Haven't you felt the siren song of a unmoderated comment section of a pro-LGBT video? It's not pretty. I think a lot of people are, like, drawn to things that make us angry or things that, like, kind of upset us. Because when it comes to viral ideas and interesting talking points, it's not just the cute cat pictures that can really spread, but stuff that makes us angry and stuff that makes us highly anxious also tends to be viral in that manner. Compare like cute dog pictures or cute cat pictures with sharing a really infuriating retail experience. In a way, I think a lot of content consumers tend to not appreciate depressing or super unhappy content. Rather, they find it to be kind of annoying or a call for attention. So just to put this up and out there, I am not a psych student or a therapist. I am a media studies student. And I think a lot of my advice will apply mostly to people who are not to the point where they need to go and get professional help. If you are at that spot, please help yourself to professional help, because I can't help you in that regard. I think what's really important when it comes, if you find yourself in these downward spirals of obsessing over things or, content that's not very helpful to your state of mind, I'm not the kind of person who will say you need to step away from your computer, but you may feel as though you might need to do that, or perhaps that is the right thing to do. What might be refreshing is to step away and to handle your life affairs in order. One sort of option could just be to step away from the computer entirely, to take some time to yourself to get your life in order. I don't mean like getting yourself a job and getting your career in order, but it could just be something as simple as taking the dirty dishes outside of your room and cleaning them and putting them away. It could be just making your bed. So with a digital self-harm, it's very strange, because you usually associate self-harm with things like the self-destructive behaviors and the like. But with digital self-harm, a lot of the destructive behaviors are not physically seen, and oftentimes they could just be something like you're willingly going to participate in something that actively upsets you or really makes you feel like shit half the time. And so I think a lot of people don't really seem to understand the kind of nuance at play, because I think a lot of people will come across even experts who will say oh, if your problem is with Facebook, then just log off and go take a walk. And that seems very patronizing to me personally, because with the internet being such a monolith at the moment, where it's actively hard to start participating in public or even participate in getting a job when you're offline the internet. You can't pound pavement anymore to do that kind of thing. So when you're being actively told to stop participating in the online world, it seems, again, very patronizing, because people can't always just get away from the stuff permanently of what upsets them. So our digital world is becoming increasingly open and increasingly public. And a lot of people don't seem to realize that at one point, being on the internet was actually a very solo sort of activity. We didn't have these huge social media dashboards that had content constantly being streamed to our eyeballs. So I think a lot of people don't seem to realize the value that there is in finding time away from that. When it comes to media wellness, I think what's important to understand is that we can't continuously stay public forever. We can't continuously stay part of the huge public panopticon, especially when we are in a state of mind that doesn't make us successful in that panopticon, if that makes any sense. when we find that we're not successful in the huge panopticon of like hearts and reboggling and reboogling, it's like we feel like that we're just not successful, period. And I think that like robs us of a lot of our control, and I think a big part of having that healthy life balance is to find ways to escape it. So even if you're not someone who likes staying away from the computer, you can still find ways to stay away from the public sphere. Like, play a solo game. You know, things that don't require other people to be watching you is, I think, very invaluable. I don't have anything else.